We all have to eat. You might as well find out where the best food is. From restaurant reviews to the fun of food from around the region to around the world. This is The Food Show with Andrew Coppolino on 570 News.
And there we are. Welcome to The Food Show. It's been a long time since I've been here, actually. I've been off for a couple of weeks, so I'm feeling a little rusty behind the mic. But I'm really glad to be back here in the saddle, as it were. And I'm glad you could join me. And I have a kind of a fun show today, and I want to introduce a really fun lady. I've talked with her on a number of occasions on her own program here at the station. It's Michelle Dyer. She sits across from me in the co-host seat. Welcome.
This is Sunday. You know this, right?
Yeah, well, you're not used to Sunday? Well, I'm sorry. I appreciate you coming in.
No, I'm kidding. I'm just teasing you. You look
Michelle
very
is
tanned.
the senior talk show producer and host of her own show, the Michelle Dyer Show, here on 570 News.
You look very tanned.
I look very tanned. Well, I did come back from a place where you can get tan, not the salon, but the actual state where you get sun. Yeah. I spent a good solid 2 weeks in Florida.
Well, it's very fetching. It's very becoming of you.
Does it make me look younger?
Yeah.
I'm hoping it does.
Yeah, it makes you look younger.
Well,
it makes you look healthy.
We were just talking before we went on air here that I'm not crazy about Florida. I mean, I like a little bit of warm weather, but the culture as a whole is something that it's not my cup of tea exactly.
Well, aren't there a lot of retired people?
There are. And I was in a sort of a retirement complex. It's a golf course, and
Perfect.
Although I don't play golf, but it was very quiet, and the nature and the wildlife was quite nice,
Very
as
nice.
well as the beverages and such.
I'll
tell you some of my food experiences when I'm down there. We
cool.
also want to note that we're going to be speaking with Lori Mello. She's from Taste of Woolwich. I never know if it's Taste of Woolwich or Taste of Woolwich.
I think it's Taste of Woolwich.
Okay, we'll say Taste of Woolwich. It's Woolwich is a township, I guess, and there's a really neat program that's been running there for a couple of years. We're going to talk to Lori a little bit about the sort of Taste of Woolwich food event that's coming up, and that's tomorrow night. So I want to alert you to that now to book it onto your calendar, and we'll talk to Lori later in this hour. Also joining us in studio, Sandy Hall from the Waterloo Public Library. Welcome to the show. It's great to have you
Thanks
here.
for having me here.
Now, you've got a kind of an interesting revisiting, I guess, of a great event that you started off in 2003 with a local cookbook where you accept recipes and you publish a book. This started in 2003?
It did. A lot of people that work in libraries tend to like to cook. I'm not sure why the connection there, but we decided to do a cookbook, and at first we had tossed around the idea of just having staff submit their favorite recipes, but we thought, no, we'll get the community involved, and we ended up getting between 500 and 600 recipes submitted from all cultures, which was terrific.
Yeah.
And all ages. I mentioned to you earlier, from children straight through to grandparents. We even had a child submit a recipe on making jelly sandwiches.
PBJ.
Oh,
Yep,
cool.
and that made the cookbook too. So
good.
yeah, we do that, and what we do is you submit your recipe, you submit the title of your favorite book. So then people who buy the cookbook not only get great recipes, but they get excellent recommended reads.
I see how that works. Very good. And 500 to 600 recipes were submitted.
Right.
What was the criteria, I guess, for deciding what went in, or did all of them make it in?
Everything makes it in pretty much.
Wow.
We just sort of at first said, if one person submitted 50 recipes, that we reserve the right to maybe back off a little bit on some of them. But last time everything went in.
And this is the same process now. People can, starting now, they can submit a recipe. How do they do that?
They can either email the recipe in, or if they're really not into their email, which I know there still are some people who aren't, they can come to the library, pick up a form, and they can actually fill it out, and then we'll do the data entry on it.
What's the email address?
S as in Sandy, HALL @WPL.ca, and that's on the website too.
And the website is cookbook.wpl.ca. That'll
right.
take them to the page. So you get all these recipes. Are you the one responsible for going through 500 and deciding how they're going to be organized and how they're going to be structured? That's you all by yourself.
That's me.
That's a big job.
Yeah,
that's a big
it's
job.
a big job, but I love cooking. Like that's
and you
one
have to,
of
of
my
course, test all these
relaxations,
recipes as well. Test them all.
No, but I eyeball them. Make sure there's not like 1 cup of salt in something, that kind of thing, right?
So you do have to read them fairly
Oh
closely.
yeah, you have to proofread everyone, because everybody makes typos, right? So
Sure.
you have to keep an eye on some of the measurements. And
What are some of the things that stand out from the last book that were really great recipes, or things that you had never expected to see?
Oh gosh, the nice thing was it was multicultural, so we had everything from like Indian recipes, Greek, traditional kind of pubby recipes, from things that are extremely simple with maybe 5 ingredients to ones that were like a 2-page gourmet recipe. And
yeah,
I
you start
use it a lot,
you start
so-
brining things in April, and then
cooking
in
them in November.
Exactly. Start with this recipe first.
Yeah.
But yeah, everything, and for all cooking levels, which
Right.
was really great.
And how did you organize the book then, in terms of by regional cuisines, by
No,
types
the
of food,
traditional,
the
like
traditional.
baking,
Okay.
main course, salads, soups, that sort of thing.
Now, I guess for this book you'll do the same thing, but it might be structured in a different way depending on the kind of recipes you get. I mean, they would sort of speak to how the book might be organized
That's
rather than
right.
the other way around.
Yeah, you just have to see what all comes in. I mean, you always get a large amount of baking, whether it's desserts, cookies, muffins, that sort of thing.
Did you notice anything that was, shall we say, Waterloo region traditional, or in any way that sort of was definitive of this area of Ontario?
I think
or not?
what actually made it more definitive is the number of multicultural
Yeah.
recipes there were. I mean, you got some very traditional German recipes, but also some very traditional British ones because there's such a stronghold here. So, that's the whole thing that made it a lot of fun, was seeing these recipes come in from all ages. And we had recipes, I mean, because of the internet, we had recipes come in from overseas in the States.
Oh, nice.
I mean, it's people here, but I mean, if someone visits our website from abroad and they want to send in a recipe, hey, we'll take
Sure
it.
thing. And did you get any celebrities slipping in, or like did Mayor Halloran send in a
Last year we had a
recipe?
few, or last time we had a few. Elizabeth Whitmer, I remember she did submit a recipe, and a few others. This year I've actually had a few recipes from celebrity type chefs
Right.
that have, responded and
Will
said
they
that
make
they
the
would
cut?
like
Or
to.
will they make the cut, or will they get bumped by the 6-year-old's PBJ recipe?
I think I'll make room for both. I'll squeeze them
okay.
all in together.
It would be interesting because that 6-year-old that sent in the PB&J recipe 2003 would now be so many years older.
Yeah.
So it'd be nice to see what kind of recipe
Right.
they would submit now.
Right, with a little note saying, "Oh, I was so embarrassed by that really
Exactly.
novice.
My
Okay, here's
mother
something
put
with
that in.
it's
Yeah.
grilled cheese. I can use the stove
Katie.
now."
That'd be interesting.
I'm speaking with Michelle Dyer. She's senior talk show producer and the host of the Michelle Dyer Show on 570 News here, and Sandy Hall, Waterloo Public Librarian. I guess you're a librarian, is that correct?
I actually do the marketing and the website
marketing,
for the
okay.
library.
And we're talking to her about the great new cookbook that is currently in the works, cookbook.wpl.ca. Proceeds, this book is for sale,
Yeah.
and proceeds will go to a specific section of the library.
That's right. We're fundraising for the children's picture book area at the main library. We'd like to do just a nice refurbishment and some new toys and just maybe paint and some carpeting and things like that. So figured this would be a perfect
Really good.
fundraising
Cause.
effort.
Yeah.
How many copies will you? Who publishes it, and how many copies will there be available?
There's actually a Canadian company in Manitoba, and that's all they do are community cookbooks. And they're fantastic to work with, and they make it very easy, and they do a beautiful cookbook and, good cover on it, nice spine, and so it's not going to, when you're going to crack it open, you're not going to end up with paper all over the place. And last time we sold 1,100. We initially had only ordered 500, and we thought, hopefully we sell 500. And we sold 500 in like the first month.
Oh, great.
So we're hoping to hit 1,100 again this time.
Will you take pre-orders?
Yeah, we'll take pre-orders if people want to let us know. They could use the same email address, let me know, and I'll just keep a list. But
What will it retail for?
if we're going to hit around the same last time. We were at $12 each or 2 for $20.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
That's really
it's a great thing.
inexpensive.
Yeah, I think it is, and it's a great. I like I've always thought that cookbooks and recipes, especially, are sort of placeholders almost of a community and of a culture of a particular time, and so it's nice to have that collection capturing all of the sort of the collective cooking wisdom, I guess, and ideas, because you can pick up 100 different ideas in a cookbook for different dishes you never thought those ingredients would go together, or different ways of doing something you've done in a tried and true kind of method. So it's a great, like I say, it's a great capture of the community at a particular time.
I agree. And I think a lot of people collect community cookbooks. And I mean, generally, as somebody who works in the library, I don't really say you should fold down the corners of your pages of your books. But my cookbooks are pretty brutalized at home. But I tried a ton of recipes from it, and they all worked beautifully. And even the complicated ones, like once you get right to it, it's not that bad. They were worth the effort. So.
Yeah, all right, and you reserve the right, as you said, to edit if you see
in case there's something
that's
kind of
little
peculiar, I'll email the person back and say, is this really 1 cup of salt, or is this a tablespoon or a teaspoon? Or
And working with writers can be quite a pain too, because they can be quite snobby.
So can I just ask one question? Where does the books come in? So you send in a recipe, and I'm going to send in a recipe for my PB&J, and then also a recommended title to
of
read?
a book that you love. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so then that way, and sometimes it doesn't have to have any connection to the book, 'cause some people figured if it was
like if I wanted to send in my PB&J and then put Hunger Games on the bottom, like it doesn't have to have that core.
No,
okay.
no,
right.
not
But
at
it does
all.
have a food theme.
I know,
Yeah,
doesn't
see,
it?
there
though?
you go.
You could have,
not a.
yeah, you could have picked, a bodice ripper. PB&J and who? I don't even know what bodice ripper is.
I don't know.
Sandy, give us Sandy Hall from the Waterloo Public Library. Give us one more time a location that they can go on the internet to get information and contact you about the great opportunity.
Yeah,
that,
they can go
presented.
to the library's website, or it's easier to go to the cookbook website, which is cookbook.wpl.ca. And once you get in there, all the information that you need is online. If you're not an online kind of person, just pop into any of the branches of our library, and they'll have forms that can be filled out and just drop those back off.
Well, I think we've mentioned PBJ so many times here that I'm going to throw this out, make Sandy's job a little more challenging. I'm going to say, okay, let's try to get as many peanut butter and jelly sandwich recipes as possible in all kinds of different variations.
Oh, thanks a lot.
So she can have
Thanks,
a full section on PBJ. I think that's a great idea.
That's funny. Yeah, that would be good.
Yeah. Sure. Well,
That would be good because you can add bananas, you
Yeah.
add a little chocolate. Oh, you know what? That's brilliant. A whole section of PB&J.
And you know what? You see, I'm not a really big peanut butter fan on
Me
its
neither.
own, but when it's melted a little bit on a warm piece of toast. So could you sort of grill a little bit?
With honey?
Panini.
Yeah. In a
peanut
press.
butter panini.
Oh, with a little honey, a little Nutella.
Yeah, Nutella.
Oh, now I'm hungry.
There you go.
New cookbook idea.
Well, thanks, Sandy. We appreciate you taking the time out to join us here, and I know you've got other duties here today, but I wanted to, or later in the day for your busy day, and I want to thank you for taking the time to come in and join us here on the Food Show.
Great. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. So, cookbooks for you, Michelle? Is that like a?
I love
You have a
cookbooks.
ton of them at home.
I have tons. I have them from my grandmother, I have one from 1901. I have tons of cookbooks. Yeah.
Wow.
My grandmother, when she passed away, she left them to me, so
That was hers?
they were all hers. Yeah.
Wow, that's
I
nice
have
to
like
have,
her
too.
notes,
Oh.
her recipes written in her handwriting. Like the paper is getting a little. She used to have those little recipe cards.
Yeah,
I have them all. I have every
See,
single
no,
one of them.
Is she Italian?
No.
No, okay,
This was
not
my
that-
mom's mom.
Okay.
Yeah.
So she's English speaking, I guess.
She was.
first
Yeah.
thing.
She's
You
English.
see,
yeah.
my grandmother was Italian, and I don't think she could barely speak English, let alone write it. So nothing is written down. So you ask her for a recipe. She made these great cakes and little tarts and things like that, and or even pasta dough or spaghetti dough or something. You couldn't She just says, when it feels like this. And
Yeah.
I mean, you can't. It's
That's the
impossible to
Italian
duplicate.
side.
Impossible to duplicate.
Yeah, the Italian. My dad's the same way. He couldn't tell me what he put in his minestrone soup if his life depended on it, but it's the best thing on the planet. And same with anything.
it is
his
not.
ossobuco.
Because that's
and-
my.
But anything like that, anything he makes like that, forget it.
Yeah.
He just, it's whatever he feels like. And today you would have something like carrots, and tomorrow, we didn't have any carrots in the fridge, so I didn't put carrots in. I put parsnip. Like, he'll just throw whatever,
Yeah.
and it turns out brilliant every time. It's amazing to me how they do
Yeah,
that.
they are. It's quite amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I'm Andrew Coppolino, and I'm speaking with Michelle Dyer, of course, the Michelle Dyer Show here on 570 News. We'll get more details from Michelle about when you can listen to her program, and I've joined Michelle on air during her program, and I can tell you it's a lot of fun, so I really encourage you to listen in, entertaining and enlightening at the same time. That's prime for me, entertainment and enlightenment. This is the Food Show. Time for a short break. When we return, we'll get a taste of Woolwich, or Woolwich if you prefer. This is 570 News.
This is the Food Show with Andrew Coppolino. To call Andrew, 519-570-2545. By cell, star 570. Or toll free, 1-800-570-5715. To the Food Show with Andrew Coppolino on 570 News.
Say, hey, good looking.
Hey, good looking. Michelle Dyer's here with me, senior talk show producer and host of the Michelle Dyer Show on 570 News. I'm glad you're able to join me in the studio because I know you have a great love and passion for food.
I
and
do.
we share some cultural background. And your show is coming up tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night, yeah. We have people coming in for the MS Walk. We're going to talk to a gentleman, John, who's been on the MS or part of the MS Walk for years. So we're going to talk to him and one of the community representatives for the MS Walk. And then I had the privilege of speaking with Miss Potato Head. From Toy Story, Estelle Harris.
Oh, really?
Seinfeld's mom.
Yeah.
I had the privilege of speaking with her last week, so I have a recorded interview that we're going to play for everybody tomorrow night.
That is one of my all-time favorite shows, and those characters are hilarious.
Yeah, she was,
the Seinfeld characters, not the Mr. Potato Head character.
No,
although they're funny too.
Funny too. She was a great interview. She's such a feisty 70s, 80s-year-old woman. Let's be nice. And she's involved with senior pets as well. So she was doing a interview regarding some new products out for senior pets because she's a senior. And she had this anyway, so she wanted to talk about that, but she was very open and honest about her Seinfeld character and the group that she worked with, and then the Potato Head and the Toy Story stuff. And
what to be part of such two great sort of cultural iconic programs. What a great way to.
She really had a great positive attitude towards both, and I asked her if they were going to have a Seinfeld reunion, so you have to tune in tomorrow night at 7 o'clock.
At 7 o'clock, very good.
Is when the show starts. So.
Now, as you're driving out to Woolwich, you can be listening to the Michelle Dyer Show because tomorrow evening is the 6th annual Taste of Woolwich. There's a lot going on in just the few hours that the event runs, and to tell us about it and joining us on the line is an official from the Taste of Woolwich, Lori Mallow. Lori, are you there?
Hi, Andrew.
I'm glad you're able to join us. Welcome to the show.
Thanks.
Now, tell us a little bit about the Taste of Woolwich, what it is, when it runs, sort of the juicy details so people can get there.
Okay, the Taste of Woolwich will be tomorrow evening from 5 until 8 p.m. And in addition to having our usual fun marketplace of local farmers and food producers, we're having a youth recipe challenge, which is new this year. And we also have 4 very informative, interesting workshops. They're free. And the workshops will run through the evening, so you can pop in whenever it's convenient. You don't have to be there right at 5 o'clock.
Okay.
But the workshops will run throughout the evening at the Breslau Mennonite Church in Breslau. This is our first year having it in that location for the Breslau community and for all of Waterloo region. It'll be a fun time. The kids are really excited about this recipe challenge. We've had different groups of children involved, and I can tell you a little bit about each of the workshops, Andrew. The first one is about quick and nutritious meals for young families.
That's important, very important.
Yeah, I think it'll be helpful for some of the parents to get a few ideas and tips on how to cook with local food, make nutritious meals that are palatable for those young kids that might be a little bit fussy. So local dietitian Robin Hicken will host that workshop. And then we have another one that follows that is being hosted by Chef Ryan Terry, and that's the actual youth recipe challenge. Mm-hmm. And it'll be fun because he, along with the kids, will be preparing and showing and also giving out samples of the winning recipe that the winning children's group has submitted.
Very nice. We've had Ryan on. If I can just interrupt, we've had Ryan, Chef Ryan, on the show.
Oh,
here. Yeah, he cooked a piece of salmon for us, and I can imagine the next morning Jeff Allen, who comes into the studio after me on some Monday morning, would have smelled salmon. Sorry, Laurie, just a little food sidebar there.
Tasty treats. No, this one here promises to be just as interesting and fun. The kids will be, with their sleeves rolled up right in there.
It can also get a little bit serious. You've got some light, carefree things to help kids learn to cook. You've got the Youth Recipe Challenge, but you've also got a couple of seminars, I guess, or little talks, anyway, discussions that have a more serious kind of nature to them. Tell us about those.
Yes, that's the next workshop, which is an enlightening one being hosted by Steve Martin and Ellen Desjardins. And the whole idea with that workshop is to give people a better appreciation for what the costs are associated with our local food. And hopefully the workshop will help people to make informed decisions on when they're buying their food, keeping in mind, when they're choosing local food or food flown in from other parts, they'll appreciate the differences and the benefits.
Michelle, we should point out that that's Steve Martin of Martin's Apples and not the comedian.
Yeah,
right.
I know
Exactly.
who that
The arrow through his head and the banjo.
Steve Martin. I know Martin's Family Fruit Farms.
Great,
of course I do.
Great little business.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, and then the other workshop is also a good one for learning tips in the kitchen, cooking with the slow cooker cooking. And Libby Berry of Berry's Asparagus Farm is hosting that workshop, and it promises to be another good one to inspire us all
Very
to cook
good.
with local food.
What's the intent behind the Taste of Woolwich? I mean, it's sponsored by FoodLink Waterloo Region, the Waterloo Region Public Health Department, as well as Woolwich Healthy Communities. But what's the intent behind it? What are you trying to achieve here as a group?
Well, as a group, the volunteers become involved with the community to really encourage people to think about living more socially, economically, and environmentally, so that they really encourage everyone to follow a more sustainable lifestyle, one that really supports our local farms and encourages everyone to care for each other. And the whole healthy communities approach is really been embraced by our committee. There are a whole series of events this month, but this Taste of Woolwich event will be very focused on food and sustainability.
Is it free? Is there a cost?
That's the greatest part, is that all of this sharing is for free except for a suggested donation of $2. But kids are free, and it is just a donation that they're encouraging. There'll be lots of tastings and there are a variety of local products for sale as well.
Oh, that's wonderful. Just give us one more time the location, the date, and where people can get information from a website.
Right. The location is at the Breslau Mennonite Church in Breslau, 226 Woolwich Street, Breslau. And the website information can be found at the healthywoolwich.org. So that's www.healthywoolwich.org.
And that's for tomorrow night, 5 to 8 p.m.
Great.
Thanks a lot, Lori. We appreciate you taking the time and talking with us.
Okay, Andrew, have a great afternoon.
Good luck with the program tomorrow.
Thanks.
Well, there we are. That's Lori Mallow. She's with Taste of Woolwich. Check it out tomorrow night and visit healthywoolwich.org to get more information. Nice, got a kid recipe theme going here today, don't we, Michelle?
Yes, we do. And you know what? I think that, just my own personal opinion, I believe strongly that a child should learn to cook. And they should be involved in the kitchen. I am just speaking from experience, and you will too.
Right.
When your kids are involved in the cooking process, they will eat the food.
Yeah, I agree with you. And you know what? When I was a kid in school, in grade school, middle school, or whatever they call it, there was an industrial arts component for the guys, and for the ladies there was. And there was my school crossed over, and a bunch of us guys went over. We had made our little tin boxes and worked the lathe and made other doodads and useless things to give our fathers for Father's Day. But we went over to the cooking side of things, and of course that was a bit of a feast, right? Because I think they had to stop the program after we went through because we ate them out of house and home. But the point for me is that there isn't enough of that in school, teaching kids about nutrition, teaching kids about how to cook, basic things. I mean, we can teach them trigonometry and calculus and geography and all that kind of stuff. Yes, that's very important. But, I mean, when they get out of school and are on their own, they have to know how to cook. And we don't teach that well enough, probably. And I'd like to see something, bolstered in the smaller, lower grades of school. And especially with nowadays, it's so easy not to cook. Everything's available to you. It's so easy to walk into wherever and buy something that's already pre-made. You throw it in the microwave for 20 seconds, and zap, you've got this food. The problem with that is they all have a time and place. Mm-hmm. The issue is that they're not very good for you. No. And when you read the nutritional label, which is another thing they should be teaching in school, is how to read a label. Right. You look at it, and the sodium content and the fat content is really not good for you. Try to find a food product that isn't like a carrot or a peach or whatever that only has 2 ingredients in it. You'll never be able to do it. In those middle aisles, it's 15 ingredients. The first two are sugar and sodium.
Yeah, and you can't even read the ingredients.
Well, you know, there's a book that I want to talk to you about when we come back. We have to do a break here. Let's talk about this weightier side of things when it comes to our food systems. I'm Andrew Coppolino, and I'm very pleased to have with me Michelle Dyer here. She's from the Michelle Dyer Show, and she's also one of the senior producers at the radio station 570 News. And her show is on tomorrow night at 7.
Starts at 7.
And please tune in and have a listen, and call in and talk to Michelle as well. But stay tuned. We've got more chat with Michelle when we return. You're listening to 570 News.
We all have to eat. You might as well find out where the best food is. From restaurant reviews to the fun of food from around the region to around the world. This is The Food Show with Andrew Coppolino on 570 News.
Yes, there we go. Welcome back again. Well, I am excited to have Michelle here, and I can tell by the way the last couple of minutes have gone with Michelle that we're not going to possibly have enough time to get out of our squirrel-like brains all the sort of excitement and food interest that we have, and we're going to do our best. Did you know that today is National Glazed Ham Day?
It is?
Yeah, which I find kind of funny because I think isn't this like the end of Passover or something like that? So for National Glazed Ham Day to be, I don't understand why it's at this point of the year. It doesn't make any sense to me. But also, more importantly, and I've got some food facts to go with this, of course, that this is the day when the Titanic plummeted to the bottom of the ocean 100 years ago. A lot of famous people died on that ship. But there was a lot of food on that ship. There was, 1,500 people lost their lives shortly after, 2:20 in the morning or whatever. But there was some amazing food that was on board. There was 8 cases of orchids and 4 cases of opium. I don't know why they were on board, but on board in terms of food was 1,000 pounds of grapes, 25,000 pounds of poultry, 75,000 pounds of fresh meat.
Wow.
That was a lot of food that had to feed all of those people.
How did they... Because it was 1912. How would they store that? Would it be refrigerated?
Oh, yeah, they would have had refrigerators. There would have been sort of
generators
dedicated to keeping it cool and stuff. And,
but the generators must have been the size of the boat itself. Because now, they're the size of our hand. But back then...
Oh, yeah, there must have been... The logistics of this were huge. There was 11-course dinner for the first class patrons.
I read that, yeah.
There was 3 kitchens there that they were working in. So there would have been like a full-size pastry kitchen. I'm sure they would have had one kitchen with just doing pastries. 60 chefs. That's like hotels, major hotels probably. I would be surprised if they had 60 chefs.
I was going to say they don't even have 60.
Certainly they wouldn't be all on duty at the same time. They'd be shifting over a 24-hour period. They churns out 6,000 meals a day on the Titanic.
Wow.
Now they didn't have to do that for very long, of course. So I'm sorry, but first class diners enjoyed fresh lobster, roast duck, pastries, and the folks in the third class ate pickled cod, gruel, and sea biscuits or cabin biscuits.
Yeah.
So just amazing to think about.
There was somebody I just read locally, and her name escapes me. She does a meal, I guess, every...
Paula. Yes, Paula Costa. She was on the show last year when she did it. Yeah.
Yes, I think she did the first class. She did the first class meal last year, and then this year she was doing the second class meal or something.
She's quite an aficionado of that. Yeah.
Yeah, I read a lot about the Titanic this year, obviously with the Jeff Allen and Gary Doyle show, and with my own. That there was a lot of that sort of thing as people were not really celebrating, but commemorating the Titanic. And there was a lot of that, those meals. And Hugh Brewster was an author and a Titanic aficionado and historian. And he talked about that, about the gilded lives. And his book is out, and he touches upon the menu. Yeah. It's incredible.
Well, I was watching one of the older Titanic movies last night, not the James Cameron one. One from the black, it was black and white, probably 40s, 50s, something like that. It had a very different ending. The Titanic doesn't sink in the end, and they make it. No, I'm just kidding.
I was gonna say, really?
Well, the most striking
the alternative scenario.
The most striking thing for me was that the lower class passengers, when they break through the barriers to try to get out, they end up in the dining room of the first class passengers. And there's this moment when they all stop dead in their tracks, even though the ship is listing badly.
Yes.
They stop dead in their tracks and they look at the glory of this dining room set up ready for meal.
For meals.
And there's this like 10-second pause where there's just their eyes darting around the room. They look at each other and they think, oh my God, this is the way first class was.
Yeah.
And then they bolt on to try to save themselves. So that was kind of a graphic kind of reminder of the class differentiation, the luxury that those first class passengers had in terms of the food and the meals they ate. Extraordinary.
The whole thing to me is extraordinary in the class division, and as you see in the Cameron movie and you see in the movies and you hear about the history of it, there was such a significant difference. There is, I guess, today as well when it comes to food. There is that significant difference.
Yeah.
However, things today are somewhat, I guess, I shouldn't say more affordable, but they are. Like, you can still get a lobster tail, and being middle class, you can get a lobster tail in wherever, just like first class can get a lobster tail anywhere.
Yeah,
Do you know what
sure,
I'm saying?
yeah.
There's the divide is somewhat still there,
Right.
but
I think an alternate, and this sort of leads us into this book that I wanted to talk to you about. There's the interest about good food and proper nutrition is sort of starting at a grassroots level too. It isn't from a top-down kind of way. And the book that I'm just been struck with recently, and I've just reread it, The Omnivore's Dilemma: A Natural History of Four Meals. Michael Pollan. I think everyone who's into the foodie scene knows Michael Pollan, what he's all about. And this is a really cutting, incisive, enlightening, we used that word earlier, look at our food system and how bad it is from an industrial perspective. And that's
is that based in the U.S. or is that based in Canada?
Well, it's American, but I don't see any differences. I really don't. I mean, I think this book was horrifying in some respects when you think about factory farms and all of the kind of things that animals are going through, but also just the general disattachment or separation between our food and our food culture and us, like how we don't know about food anymore, and that a lot of people, like you were talking about, I mean, you can get all that stuff, but the products in the grocery stores can be so bad for you. They're all based in sort of a chemical industrial production, and he says we need to get away from that. He says that this is something that's going to doom our food system, and I know there's a lot of people at the grassroots. Taste the Wolf is a good example, and even something like the community cookbook with the Waterloo Public Library, putting kids in touch with cooking, putting them in touch with what ingredients are, and hopefully parents are saying, this is a healthy ingredient, and we don't put too much salt in it, and we don't use a lot of sugar, we don't refine, we don't process, we make real food.
Yeah. We're fortunate, my family's fortunate enough that my dad still to this day has his own garden, and he's Italian, and it's massive.
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy. He's already teaching our 3-year-old how to plant. So he's got his own little bucket and his own little patch of the garden that he's planting his own stuff in, and he goes up and he waters, and it's like the cutest thing in the world. But there's that element of teaching that he thinks, my kid's thinking he's playing in the dirt and it's having a great time, but he's learning how to sustain the earth.
Well, can you imagine just the kids getting the opportunity to put their hands in earth from which the carrots grow or whatever?
And
that's not happening enough, or it hasn't been happening, or we've lost touch of that. And I think one of the benefits, of course, I'm speaking with Michelle Dyer here, 570 News show producer, as well as host of the Michelle Dyer Show, Mondays at 7 o'clock, coming up on Monday at 7 o'clock. The connection between the family order here is important too. Your father passing along as a grandfather his knowledge to kids that maybe that generation got left out at some point, reintroducing them to how food, where it comes from and how to grow it.
We got left out.
Maybe
my
we
generation
did,
did because and you and I are around the same age, in our 40s, right? Early 40s?
Late 30s.
Okay. Early 40s.
39.
39. All right. Okay, I'll be 39 too. I'll hold. I'm a little bit over 40.
Right.
But in the sense that you always look at your parents very differently. My dad, came here and was very strict with us, and he had 3 daughters and then a son. He was very strict with us in our upbringing and what I deemed to be old-fashioned. And when I used to call him, Dad, you're so old-fashioned, I'd roll my eyes at him. And I was this career-driven woman and didn't have time to worry about what my dad was planting in the garden because that was my dad's thing.
Right.
And, oh, God, there's Dad with his tomatoes. And I used to say to him, you can buy those in the store. And he used to just get so angry with me going, what are you talking about? Buy them in the store. They're full of chemical. I don't use chemical, whatever.
Right.
And it never clued into me until years later. And years later where I actually started worrying about what I was putting into my body.
Right.
And looking at it now, even worse now, is reading the ingredients because we have this child and thinking, wow, my father was so way ahead of all of this, you know, and yet so not ahead. This is what they do. They grow what they can, because my father didn't have any money. They didn't have money to go to the store and buy these processed foods because they are expensive. And they weren't all career driven, and they weren't all, you know, his mom stayed at home, his dad worked the land, his brother, you know, went to work, his sister-in-law stayed home. My mom stayed home for years, and they did what they could, and part of what they could was grow their own food because it was cheaper. And they could fill the bellies of 4 or 5 kids.
My grandmother was the same way. She's no longer with us, but she used to take potato peels and she'd put them in the ground and then somehow grow into potatoes. I can't believe it. My parents didn't do that, but they did introduce us to cooking at home. And making sure that we knew. I don't remember having the kinds of foods that I've seen out there. That was not part of our diet at all. And I had an appreciation for that. And yesterday I went to the market and I can't grow tomatoes, or I don't have the time to grow tomatoes, or whatever. It's just not part of my lifestyle. But I go and buy good food. I bought a beautiful piece of pork from Charles Quality Meats on the market. And I braised it in the oven low and slow for about 4 hours. And then I put it on my smoker outside for another 2 hours. And then I made a pulled pork sandwiches with it, and it was absolutely divine. I got this gigantic mountain of meat to feed everybody in the house. It was $20. I know all the ingredients that went into it. There's no hormones and no chemicals in Charles meat. And I thought, this is the way. I could go to the store. I could buy that product as a frozen, ready-made thing and dump it in the water and start it. But, you don't need to do that. You need to know a little bit of technique, and you have to have a little bit of patience and time, and you can cook in a much more healthy way than...
You don't even need to really know that much technique, because you can get... you can go to the store and you can buy those frozen steaks or whatever and thaw, and they're crap, and let's be real, they're crap. And people think that that's great food. No, you go into a farmer's market, or you go into a real butcher, the guy behind the counter in your local, no offense to the guy behind the counter in the grocery store, they're not butchers.
No.
They are not. You go to a real butcher, and your meat costs just as much or just as little, depending on what you order and what you want, and you get them home, and all you need is a little black pepper on there, and you put that on your barbecue. And I'm telling you, it is way different than those sautéed, already seasoned, frozen stuff, salty stuff that you get there. And when your steak melts in your mouth, and there's no chemical in that, there's no preservative in that to keep them on the shelf a little bit longer or whatever. And the meat, the one that we go to, Fresh Market up on Jones Baseline, they have their own. They do it themselves. They are real butchers, and they're melt in your mouth. And that's the way I think food should be cooked at home, just like my parents did.
I'm speaking with Michelle Dyer from 570 News, talk show host, producer, talk show, and it's great to have you here. And
Thank
my
you.
mouth
It's
is
my
watering
pleasure.
too.
I know. I want to stay.
There's more
now.
chat coming up, though. Don't go away. We have to take a brief break, but when we come back, there's more with Michelle and I here on the Food Show. You are listening to 570 News.
This is the Food Show with Andrew Coppolino. To call Andrew, 519-570-2545. By cell, star 570. Or toll free, 1-800-570-5715. This is the Food Show with Andrew Coppolino on 570 News.
There we go. Welcome back. This is the last segment of the Food Show. I'm glad you've been with us, and I'm sorry to see you go. We've got just one more segment left, and I want to thank Michelle Dyer. She's in here every day of the week doing various tasks, and I've asked her to come in on a Sunday, and I want to thank you for doing that.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
And
really.
I also wanted to point out to you that today, on this day in 1955, the first franchise McDonald's was opened in Des Plaines, Illinois. Ray Kroc bought the hamburger restaurant owned by the McDonald brothers. Opening day, a patty cost you, two-patty hamburger was 15 cents and fries were 10 cents. Now, if you talk to Michael Pollan and the Omnivore's Dilemma, that was the beginning of the end for a lot of what our food culture is. But you have an interesting trip coming up. I've been on an interesting trip from Florida, and I can say that the food culture there is much, 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 much similar. it's good and all it's bad in Florida as it is to Canada here. But you're going to a place where the slow food movement began, where people have a real appreciation for proper food and proper eating. You must be very excited about that.
We are. First time ever, I'm traveling with my sister and my brother, and we're meeting up with my mom and dad and my other sister in Italy. So we've got London, Paris, Rome, Venice, Florence, and then everything in between. And we're going for a wedding which, by the way, the food is going to be incredible. This wedding, Italian wedding. Mm-hmm. So looking forward to going to this wedding. It's going to be very different than here. We have like sit down meal here and you go on and on. There, they have an all day thing. Like you have appetizers in the afternoon and they pass stuff around. You sit down, you drink, which is the best part. And then they have dinner and the reception. Again, lots more food. So this is an all day thing. Looking forward to real fish and chips. I know that deep fried,
Oh, you're talking about England, not the Italian fish and chips.
No. Well, no, Italian fish and chips are very different.
I bet.
Let's start with London fish and chips. I know that deep fried stuff, but you got to do fish and chips in London with a pint. You have to.
Do you know what I found when I was in London? That chicken and chips was big. I was in, where was the name of that place? Like Brighton. Yeah, that was it, Brighton. Chicken and chips. So fried chicken and chips. Very interesting.
That'll be interesting.
So look for that too.
Yeah, I'm going to try that. You have to do that, right?
Wrapped in newspaper.
Yeah, see, I love that. Isn't that disgusting? I know, but that's the old fat, like where they.
Well, that's where all the grease goes.
I know, it's disgusting, but so yummy. Looking forward to Paris and really, croissant and just the cheeses and the wine and my favorite thing. And we were talking about this off air. When I was in Italy last time with my dad, I was 28, so it was somewhat a few years back.
Well, it was only 11 because you're 39 now. Right?
That's right. That's it. It was incredible because you drive everywhere and you see different. You know how on the side of the road or in particularly in metropolitan cities, much like Kitchener, you have those hot dog stands.
Sure.
In Italy, they have panini and salami and prosciutto and capocollo and wine stands. So you pull over. Yeah.
Wine stands.
Like, seriously, you pull over and just like you would order like a hot dog, as you're walking along downtown Kitchener, you would order a salami sandwich with some fresh mozzarella or fresh provolone. And would you like a glass of wine with that? Well, of course I would, because it's Italy.
Yeah.
And you sit at a picnic table and, these older gentlemen, they're living off this is their bread and butter, so to speak. So they bring you over like the peppers and the olives and stuff that they've grown with themselves. Mm-hmm. And this is not processed. This is stuff that they've grown themselves. So I'm looking very forward to showing my brother and my sister that.
Yeah, that's the amazing cultural
My mouth is watering.
It's just amazing that we've got such a, I guess I don't want to, the word I want to use I can't use, but we're very tight about the sort of liberality of these kinds of foods being on the street.
Well,
I mean, it's a very closed little network that you have to break into with the bureaucrats and,
there's health issues.
There's health issues for
Yeah.
sure. There's health issues, and there's the bricks and mortar restaurants. But you'd like to see a little bit more inventiveness, I think. And
diversity would be nice,
and hot
other
dogs,
than a hot dog.
Hot dogs, yeah.
Yeah.
And in Toronto, they have a lot of food trucks. And I know for a fact that one of our most popular restaurants here in Waterloo is currently working on getting his own food truck for the region. And I don't want to. We'll have him on the show and he's going to be here and we'll talk to him, but I'll leave it to him to make the announcement. But
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's exciting for that. Yeah, and I think that one of the things you notice when you go, I don't know so much about England, but certainly when I was in Spain, a little bit of Spain and Portugal, the food culture is just so different. I mean, it's just so different.
It's, what? There's no such thing as when you're in Italy and you're out to dinner, it's a 3-4 hour process.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing quick
about it. It doesn't
about
start until 10 o'clock at night.
Well, this is it. But they eat a big lunch, a very large lunch, and as you get into like 8-9 o'clock, it's cheeses and again those salamis and those lunch meats as we call it. But it's and then the sweets and whatever. It's not. You don't get that heavier, so you get that during the day. And that's their logic. And it's smart when you think about it, with lots of fruit and vegetables.
Okay, I got to ask you.
Sure.
Dine and dash, quick. 7 questions. Give me your answers. Favorite pizza topping?
Oh, my God, mushrooms.
What food makes you gag?
Oh, broccoli.
Do you use a microwave at home?
Yes.
Favorite TV chef?
I don't know.
Most important kitchen tool.
My whisk.
Your comfort food?
Pasta.
Sweet or savory?
Savory.
That's good. Well, I want to thank you for being here on the show. I really appreciate you taking the time, because that's all the time we have. Time flies when you're having fun with food. Yeah. I want to thank Michelle Dyer, of course. When's the show on? Monday?
Tomorrow night, 7 o'clock.
Please tune in. Sandy Hall, the Waterloo Public Library, Laurie Mallow of Taste of Woolwich, and, of course, our very own here, 570 News, Michelle Dyer. Thanks also to our studio personnel at 570, internet producers Jordan Carbone and Catherine Drake, and our studio operator, who is, in fact, Catherine Drake today. Visit 570news.com for an archive of past shows, and follow The Food Show at twitter.com, 570 Food Show. Read my column in the Kitchener Post each Friday. Next week, Guns Hill Artisan Cheese of Woodstock will be here. Remember, eat wisely and eat well. Thank you for joining us here on The Food Show, only on 570 News.